Okay, so I'm back in London and I still feel a bit sick, but the only thing I really want to talk about is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo because I've recently finished this book and it was sensational. Not that I need to add to this conversation, I feel like Book Talk is already keyed into the wonder that is Taylor Jenkins Reid, but my god, how I completely underestimated this person and her writing because this book knocked me for Daisy Jones and the Six. That's what it did. Um, my God, I read. Okay, so first off, I read it in three sittings, and even that was stretching it out. Like I was mentally having to punish myself for reading it so quickly because I was like, Alfie, you love this so much, you should read it over a longer stretch of time so that you can really take it in. But oh my, is it good? So fun thing about me, one of my all-time favorite books is The Valley of the Dolls, and I love old Hollywood. I love, books about show business that sort of show the glamorous side but also the sort of harsh realities of it. I eat those kind of stories up. So if I'd have known going into this that it was really just like a modern version of Valley of the Dolls, probably would have read this a lot sooner. But where it got so much better for me is that it's very gay. This book is very gay because Valley of the Dolls is gay, but it's gay because it's fabulous and it has just a little bit of camp. No, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is gay, really gay. Like the characters are gay, and I loved it because it was gay written properly. Like I think this book has one of the most accurate representations of bisexuality that I've ever seen, and it was fully making me emotional because I'm not used to queer representation being anything more than just, blatant tokenism. This was actually fully realized and emotional. I was like, oh my god, I can't remember the last time a book made me feel this way. I could actually see myself in the character of Celia. Like, wow. So yeah, I mean, can't recommend this enough, but you really didn't need me to recommend it to you. The references as well, though, like there's such a clever smattering of different Hollywood starlets all sort of smushed together to create the icon that is Evelyn Hugo. Because clearly the Seven Husbands, that's an Elizabeth Taylor reference. Come on. That's an Elizabeth Taylor reference. But then also the delatinization of her heritage, that to me was very Rita Hayworth. The sort of bringing this into like a journalistic biopic style storytelling, that was very Ava Gardner. The way that she's this sort of sex like figure, it felt very Marilyn, but then also this sort of classy blonde with like a square jaw, felt very Grace Kelly. I loved all of the different, you can tell that this writer has a reverence for old Hollywood, and as someone who also enjoys that, I was, vicariously living. But also, if I think back to Valley of the Dolls, Evelyn was really giving me Jennifer. Out of the three actresses in Valley of the Dolls, she was really giving me Jennifer. And what I love about that is in Valley of the Dolls, Jennifer's probably the character that we see the least development from. And it's a shame because, I mean, spoiler alert, she dies quite prematurely in the book from breast cancer. So to see her arc almost sort of get a rebirth through Evelyn Hugo, in my mind, I really enjoyed that because they have a similar personality to me where there's that tenacity. They're so hungry for the spotlight that they'll be very strategic about it. And then even the parallels of like going to Europe to make like an X-rated career revival. Like I don't know if Taylor Jenkins Reid has read Valley of the Dolls, but I definitely saw the parallels. Like Evelyn Hugo very much felt like Jennifer North inspired. If I were to change it at all, I probably would remove the twist with Monique at the end of the book because it happens so late. Like it's revealed not until like the last few chapters. And for me, it doesn't add that much. I prefer it a lot more if Evelyn just picked Monique to write this story because she read her end of life story and admired her talent as a writer. I think adding in the personal engagement of I'm also guilty because I did this to your father, I didn't need it. Yeah, it just felt like a twist for the sake of a twist. I don't think we need to like ham fist that in, especially because I know if you're anything like me, I saw it coming a mile away. So I do really like this book, but I probably would remove that. There were just so many amazing conversations in this book about queerness, and that's why I don't understand why people get upset about straight people writing queer stories, because if it's done well, it's done well. Like, I was reading this and did not think like, oh, Taylor Jenkins Reid, you're married to a man. What gives you the right? I was just thinking like, oh my God, Celia, please, you need to forgive Evelyn and be together. Ugh. Like, yes, absolutely. All those conversations about bisexuality and how, it's an unfair stigma to think that, they're just this greedy person that wants both. It's more about them looking for the right person and not even thinking about their, gender identity. Like, yes. This book, this should be taught in schools. It's that kind of book. It's like, oh, you should get the kids to read this, because it was genuinely moving and made I could see this book making positive change, which is something that you can't say about a lot of books, especially ones that came out in the last 10 years. I think in some ways I even prefer this book to Valley of the Dolls, because as much as I love Jacqueline Suzanne's writing, this one definitely did a much better job of balancing the positive and the negative, because there are sad things in this book and they're very sudden and tragic, but sometimes Valley of the Dolls, I don't know, it feels a bit more like a sort of tragedy hour, if that makes sense. Like, it really dogpiles the sadness to the point that you're like, oh, well, maybe I should just read something else, because this is affecting me to the point where I don't know if I want to keep reading this. Whereas this book, there was a balancing act. I felt like, oh, there are moments in this that make me feel proud and happy about my queer identity, and that is a rare feeling in reading, so how fabulous. But then there's also the tragic, like, oh, isn't this awful? But also, this book was very historically minded. There were a lot of real life events that were being tied in to the story in a way that I also really enjoyed, because I'm someone who loves history. Like, when they were living in New York together in their four-way marriage at the same time that the Stonewall riots were happening, oh, this is fun. And then I liked that they had the good sense to not get themselves physically involved, because I didn't need the story to suddenly change history and Evelyn Hugo throws the first brick at Stonewall. I didn't need that. But to still involve queer history and to talk about Rock Hudson's AIDS diagnosis, it was all very well done. It was very tasteful. So in summary, yes, I was late to the party. Should have read this book much sooner. Easily in my top 5 reads of this year. I mean, it completely blew my face off. I love it so much. Genuine question though about Taylor Jenkins Reid. Is this her magnum opus? I mean, it must be. But are her other books worth it? Are they on a similar level? Because if they are, then she better watch out, because I'm just going to work through her bibliography like it's nothing. Oh my goodness. That book. Incredible. There's no way her other books are on that level. I'm sorry. They can't be. Let me know. Just let me know. Do you like The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo as much as I did? Comment below. I'm obsessed. I'll go calm down.